LBA is going to energy, I believe. He said he should have something for us by, I think, tomorrow, but I'll forward you the email. Okay. I want to welcome everyone to Senate Transportation. I will open the hearing on, what are we on, 447, and the prime sponsor, Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senator David Waters, District 4, to introduce Senate Bill 447, which establishes an electric vehicle infrastructure fund. This bill arises from the arrival of federal funding and potentially federal grant funding for electric vehicle expenditures and for electric vehicle infrastructure. It's estimated that we will receive $17 million from the infrastructure bill, and then there are further grants, and then there's additional money for potentially for school buses, vehicles, and other needs as well. I want to start by thanking Commissioner Sheehan and Bill Cass from DOT and Rebecca Oler from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for their work to draft this. And it seemed that what we should do is have a particular fund set up to receive not just the monies that we know are in the pipeline from the federal government, but also to be there for potential grant and other fundings from the EPA and other agencies that have money for these purposes. So the fund, essentially, you see here, it establishes the fund, and it enables the Department of Transportation to accept federal appropriations and grants to support the construction of electric vehicle infrastructure, which then will be deposited in the fund. And importantly, then it sets the kind of agreed upon priorities. These priorities have come out of a variety of places. The Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Commission from a few years ago published its report and kind of laid out what was seen to be the best plans available. I want to also mention that the Governor Sununu commissioned a separate report to look at where these stations should be located and how they should be rolled out, and that was a very important report that the governor provided. I'd also like to mention, too, that Governor Sununu, when we did receive the VW settlement funds, said that he wanted the maximum amount possible to go into electric vehicle infrastructure. And so that was an important commitment there to make sure we're ready for the economic development and the tourism and everything else that comes along with this. So the priorities there, transportation corridors, that's been the top priority. We have an RFP out now to spend some of the Volkswagen settlement funds, but that will not be sufficient to do fast charging on all the major transportation corridors, so the federal money will be able to supplement that. The second part here was we really wanted to see if we could have a public-private partnership with large employers and others who think that for their employees this would be important to do. And then thirdly, charging infrastructure for use by the Department of Transportation and other state agencies. There is VW Trust Fund, the governor dedicated towards this purpose, and the other federal funding we're getting as well. It would be very good to make sure that our state agencies and their vehicles, as they electrify, have the capacity for charging as well. And then secondly, it does basically the same kind of thing for acquisition of electric vehicles. The fleet administrator and a list that they develop each year now has an electric vehicle at the very top of the recommended vehicles. The cost of operation of these vehicles is now lower than gas-powered ones. So because there is federal funding for this and other funding may become forthcoming, then it seemed appropriate also that we should set the priorities here, again, as developed in consultation with the Department of Transportation and Department of Environmental Services. And you note here as well the potential to kind of piggyback along with the electric school bus bill that I had earlier, that there was other money that is designated towards electric school bus infrastructure that is already committed in the infrastructure funds. We're going to get some of that. So there's that. I think what's important to emphasize beyond the details here is the bill was constructed to give the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation maximum flexibility so that she can determine what is the best way and most efficient way to spend these dollars and to make adjustments. And I think importantly as well, too, is that the capacity here to get a private contractor to do this work because there isn't, it's difficult for staff time and so on, and there's a specialization in this, so that it would enable, as we have done with the VW RFPs, to go out to get a private contract, specialize this work, and do it cheaply and quickly, because everyone knows we have to get this infrastructure built quickly, and this is probably the most efficient way to do it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Waters. Any questions from the committee? I do have just a couple, and I know you've got a few minutes before you have to go. So I noticed that you, in here, in addition to state appropriations, the commission may accept gifts, grants, and donations for deposits into the fund. When you say state appropriations, what is that? Is that general fund? What is that?
It would be at some point, if it is the will of the legislature and all the powers that be to make appropriations in this direction, they could. It's the boilerplate of setting up a fund.
Okay, and the only other question I had was on line 26, section B. It says construction of electric charging infrastructure on private property. Is that homes or is that businesses?
Meant to be businesses.
Oh, so that's where the public-private would come in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, any other?
And I mean, park and rides,
Yes.
I mean, the bus lines.
Yeah.
And there's some plans that are kind of developing around that area too, so.
So I just want to make sure that when we say private property, we're not talking homes. Okay. All right, with that.
And I'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck. Peter, do we have a list? Thank you. William Cass. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. For the record, William Cass, Assistant Commissioner for New Hampshire DOT. And I think Senator Waters covered it well. I was here mainly to answer any questions, but part of this bill we did coordinate with the Senator when he had provided some initial drafts at the beginning of the session. The dedicated project funds the dedicated federal funds that he talked about came from the recently passed IIJA Infrastructure Act. And for New Hampshire, it means $17 million over the next 5 years, so about $3.5 million per year. We're still anxiously waiting the guidance that will come out with regard to the implementation of this program. But along with that, those are formula funds, so we're guaranteed that amount of federal funding, and it's toward EV charging infrastructure. And the way the bill was written, it does appear that it's very transportation focused on transportation corridors. So some of the flexibility that's in here, those are some of the questions that we are waiting guidance for from the federal government, whether grants to private property owners or commercial property owners adjacent to these transportation corridors would be an acceptable part of the program, or whether it is strictly going to be on public, public lands or within the public corridor. But certainly the gist of the bill, it's very transportation-focused, transportation corridors, and focused on public accessibility. So, but the devil's always in the details. Those are some of the questions that we're looking to see. Part of the requirements with these funding are going to be the development of a plan submitted to Federal Highway Association for their approval that is in keeping with the requirements when they do come out, so we'll be working on that when we see the guidance. So with that, as part of some of the discussion we had this summer as this bill was coming out, whether a dedicated fund is needed or not, Transportation will see the 10-year plan when it comes later this spring. These funds we have established in the 10-year plan as a separate programmatic project. So from those federal funds, they will be tracked that way and be able to report on as a specific program within the overall federal program. But along with this formula funding, there is a corollary discretionary grant program where we will be able to apply for, in competition with other states or municipalities, additional funding toward these efforts as well too. So that would be the only comment that I have. Whether a specific dedicated fund is actually needed or not, I am not. There may be additional avenues that Senator Waters has in mind in terms of additional funding areas that could flow into these funds. But through the 10-year plan and the formula funding, we will be able to track and implement this as a separate program, whether it's in a dedicated fund or not. I guess that's just the advisory note I'd provide the committee. The only other part I would comment on is one of the things that we had really kind of talked about with some broad guidelines is, a lot of the dedicated federal funds is towards vehicle charging infrastructure kind of along public corridors. So that seemed to be a good fit with the Department of Transportation. On the vehicle side, the vehicle procurement and the vehicle buying, I know DES is much more involved with that. So we had drawn some kind of lines that, the vehicle charging infrastructure made sense for the DOT to really kind of administer, and kind of the vehicle procurement aspects of it may be better suited with DES. But either way, whether it's through a dedicated fund or through these individual programs, and the development of the plan, we will certainly be coordinating closely with our partners at other agencies in the development of this. So.
Any questions from the committee? I do have a couple of questions, Commissioner. You said that is the dedicated fund really necessary? Is that because it's in there's a piece of it broken out into the 10-year plan. What's the difference between the funds that are broken out into the 10-year plan versus this dedicated fund? What's the difference?
I think it is largely a matter of structure. So we receive federal funds into our budget, into the highway fund, Fund 15, and in our budget and other means, we track those by org codes and things like that. And so there is structure to report and track these programs, whether it's in a dedicated fund or not. The dedicated fund, I think, adds a little more administration, but typically, we see dedicated funds for, things like the highway fund or things like the betterment program that we deal with, where there's specific revenue dedicated to specific programs or elements. The idea of it being non-lapsing and things like that are, the federal highway program, the federal highway funds that we do receive are non-lapsing. They roll over year to year because of the nature of the federal program. So I don't know if I truly answered your question, but I think it's, I may need some other help with that.
Okay. I'll talk with Senator Waters regarding that. In the 10-year plan, okay, so let's just say that transportation goes out and they get some grants and some other funds. Is that also able to be funneled into the 10-year plan, into this particular fund through the 10-year plan? Or once the 10-year plan is out, that's shut down, and is that what the dedicated fund would be?
Once a 10-year plan is done and approved, we wouldn't typically go back and amend it. But
Okay.
similar to other discretionary grants, we have other federal discretionary grant programs. We just recently had received a former, it's now called RAISE, but it was a build grant, and before that it was Tiger grants for a project that we're doing in Hinsdale, Brattleboro, $12 million for that bridge. So,
Okay.
in those matters where it's not a dedicated, when it's not a dedicated fund, we go to the fiscal committee to do an accept and expend of those additional federal funds, which essentially, amends our budget and indirectly amends the 10-year plan.
Okay, so any additional funds that would have to be approved, to be accepted, would have to be approved through the fiscal committee.
Correct.
And then you put them forward.
Right.
Okay. And Senator Sherman?
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. And I think this is sort of jumping off of what Senator Birdsall said or asked. We have a lot of projects in my district, and DOT has been awesome. Some of them required pretty rapid response after some traffic fatalities and things like that. Would having this fund make the response and the need, I guess the response to electrification of our transportation grid perhaps more nimble than if we depended just on the 10-year plan? The 10-year plan is great, but there's an awful lot of deliberation and that goes into it. Sometimes we need to intervene more rapidly than that. Would this give a vehicle, so to speak, for making that more nimble, rapid response if we found, for example, that we were being overwhelmed by EVs without appropriate infrastructure to keep them going all the way up to the notch or something like that?
I don't believe that whether it's a dedicated fund or a funded program within the DOT's budget, from the nimbleness or the expediency of a quick reaction time, it would make much difference. I should, in answer to your previous question, Senator Birdsall, one of the things that Senator Waters had pointed out, which does afford, I think, with the dedicated fund, is the idea of priorities, and legislatively, as a policy matter, setting the priorities that you, Senate Transportation, or as a legislature, wants to ensure that those funds are directed towards. So that is, from a policy standpoint, setting those priorities within the law for the use of those funds is, certainly an appropriate means of addressing that.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I guess I would have is, and I don't know if you would know this, but the fiscal note, it says it's indeterminable, because it says this bill establishes an electric vehicle and infrastructure fund to be administered by DOT and authorizes the department to accept federal appropriation. So this bill provides no initial appropriation or transfer of funds. Any impact it may have on state revenue or expenditures would be contingent upon future funding. So we're not putting money into it at this point. So is that why there's really no fiscal note to it?
I outlined the funding that we're aware of now, that
Yeah.
IIJA was just
Right.
passed at the end of December. I presume by the time this was done and acted on, it was in the works, it was being talked about, but it wasn't definitive. The Infrastructure Act wasn't passed yet, so.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none?
Good. Thank you.
Becky Oler. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Rebecca Oler, Department of Environmental Services. And thank you for having this hearing and allowing me to offer some information. The department obviously works very closely with DOT on implementation of these programs, as Mr. Cass indicated. And I just wanted to offer some additional information on the vehicles themselves. I mean, for many, many years, electric vehicles have been coming, they've been coming, they've been coming. We're at the point now that they're here. And one of the things that really demonstrates that, and I can leave this with you, I didn't print enough copies, but both the 2021 model year and the 2022 model year state vehicle index, this is the contract prices or the bid prices that we've gotten, both have electric vehicles as the lowest total cost of ownership for state agencies to purchase. While the initial purchase price is a little bit higher when you look at the operation of those vehicles over the assumed time span, which I believe is 150,000 miles, that it's a much lower cost of ownership for the agencies to be purchasing the electric vehicles. So I think that this is just a very good indication that 2 years in a row we've seen this hold true. And we're just seeing that in the broader market as well. Now, if we could just get the global supply chains going again, they'd actually be available to purchase, but I think that that's going to settle itself out. So, I think that the timing is right for both the state agencies and to be trying to get some infrastructure in to support their own fleet vehicles and save the state money in the operation of our vehicles. But also to provide this for the general public, because again, we're seeing really rapid rates of adoption in the states around us, which have policies that support the purchase of the EVs a little bit more so than New Hampshire. But even in New Hampshire, and I was hoping we'd have data in time for this, but we don't have the full analysis done yet. But we get a snapshot a couple of times a year from the DMV of the registration data. And we've been tracking over the years the rate of growth of the light-duty, passenger electric vehicles in there. And the last analysis we have was for 2020, so we're missing the last couple of years. But we've got the process in place now that hopefully that's going to be changed soon, and we'll have the data. But we were seeing a doubling pretty much every couple of years, or every year, year over year, we're seeing a doubling of the number of registers EVs. And so with the 2020 data, we had over between 5,000 and 6,000 EVs registered. And I'm expecting that when we get the 2022 analysis done, we're going to be probably well north of 8,000 or so. I mean, I purchased an EV in December, and I guess once you own one, you see them all over the place. But I just see them a lot on the roads. And obviously, DES just is here and available to help implement this policy as the legislature sees fit. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the committee? none, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like a copy of the vehicle index?
That would be great if you could just give Peter and he can get copies made. Kelly Buchanan?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kelly Buchanan, and I'm the Director of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs for Clean Energy New Hampshire. And so Clean Energy New Hampshire founded and manages a coalition called Drive Electric New Hampshire, and its mission is to advocate for the accelerated adoption of EVs and the supporting infrastructure that EVs require. And so I'll be brief this morning. Folks before me spoke to the merits of it, but we really see this bill as a way to create a simple and forward-thinking solution to ensure that any federal funds we receive are quickly put to use in New Hampshire, and enables us to talk about this in a stakeholder format, especially when it comes to infrastructure. We were glad to see that DES, the Transportation Council, as well as Drive Electric New Hampshire were included as stakeholders to consult. Because these infrastructure decisions are, consequential, and we want to make sure things are distributed in an appropriate manner and where they'll be the most useful. Finally, I'll end with, in New Hampshire, transportation is one of our biggest source of end-use energy. It accounts for 42% of our end-use energy, and EVs offer us an opportunity to significantly reduce that. And so when you're driving an EV, it uses about 25% of what a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle would require in terms of end-use energy. And so for those reasons, we support Senate Bill 447, and we're glad to answer any questions you have today.
Great. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, do we have a copy of the letter? I don't know if I just got the only one, or did others get it for the committee?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, our office printer has been protesting about being used again.
No, it's a different one.
And
maybe
so
we
I
can have
did email
copies
you
just for the
testimony.
record, because I had one, but
Great,
Thank
thank you.
I apologize. Thank you, Senators.
Not a problem. Okay, anyone who is here that would like to speak on Senate Bill 447 and hasn't had the opportunity? All right, I will close the hearing on 447. Okay, and give Peter a little bit of time to I have a couple of questions on it afterwards.
yeah, sure.
Oh, that's me. I'm crime bill. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I got it. You don't, okay. There's no sense for us to double up.
Oh, okay, so I may get
You got
called
the
away.
helm. Okay,
I'm waiting for a text, but I think I got a few
should be
minutes.
pretty quick.
Goodbye, sorry about that. So I'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 406, and we have the sponsor, Senator Birdsall.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for hearing Senate Bill 406. For the record, my name is Regina Birdsall, State Senator for District 19, which encompasses the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And Senate Bill 406 was requested by the Department of Safety. It directs the Commissioner of Safety to adopt rules relative to driver education reciprocity, including procedures for determining whether the education meets the state minimum standards. The bill also authorizes the Director of the Division of Motor Vehicles to impose suspension, revocations, or other limitations on a driver convicted of certain offenses out of state, as if such conduct had occurred in this state. So with that, I will take any questions, but I believe the Department of Safety should be here to answer some of the major questions.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have Dan Goodman from AAA signed in favor but not wishing to speak. Is there anyone else who didn't sign in who would like to speak to the bill? It's like a laser. Your clarity cuts through the haze of the committee. Nobody needs to say a thing.
Well, unfortunately, I think what happened is Director Balicki asked me to put it in, and it probably hasn't translated down to the rest of the department, but. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on Senate Bill 406 that hasn't had the opportunity? Yes, come forward.
Hi, for the record, my name's Dave Goodman, I'm the manager of public affairs for Lake Northern England, and I'm sorry, no worries. Thank you. And as Chair Burgell just said, I think one of the issues, as some people may be aware, may not be aware, Director Balecki stepped down, and so there's been some transition, and I think that's maybe where this bill is. And we're here in support of this bill as well. And over the last, we really want to see a more transparent reciprocity process, and I think that this bill does that. Over the last 18 months, we've received quite a few calls from AAA members who have taken driver ed in bordering states in Vermont and Maine, who have paid the driving ed tuition, $500, $600, $700 in their home state, moved to New Hampshire with their child who had a permit, and went through the reciprocity process and was asked to take driver ed all over again. So to take driver ed twice. So this being a more transparent process, I think would be very helpful. And with that, that's all I just want to say.
Thank you for the clarification. Any questions from the committee? Senator Ward.
Thank you very much. Just for clarification, and from your knowledge, is that a huge discrepancy between what is required in one state versus another as far as the academic things that you have to know and the actual driving skills?
Thank you for the question. No, there's really, from what they're taught in driver ed, there's really no difference. It's 30 hours in the classroom. Many schools are teaching the same handbooks. I think sometimes the processes that they do it are a little different. Where in New Hampshire, you have to do, it's 30 hours in the classroom and 10 hours in a car. Where in New Hampshire, you also have 6 hours of observation time. And there's some other processes of the in-car training, but the overall in the classroom portion, I think is, I'm quite involved with the driver ed communities in all 3 states, and I would say they're all very high quality level platform there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Is anyone else here who would like to speak on 406 that has not had the opportunity? With that, I will close the hearing. Can we take like a 5-minute break? We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be right back to hopefully exec.
I think we can check with Rob, but I think this is the final we have.
Okay, wait a minute, I gotta get myself.
Rob, I think we have the final amendment you wanted, right? On the rest of the international bill? I mean, if not, we can wait, or I don't care if we do it today anyways, but since he's here, I just thought we'd check. I think that's the last one. Okay, good.
That good?
All right.
Does everyone have,
308. It's amendment 285.
yep, I got it.
Okay, and then I don't know if are you ready for this?
Oh, let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I know. I'm still waiting to see, I gotta go back and testify, they're running slow, so I'm just waiting for it to come
We
up.
won't do any votes until we.
Yeah, I Oh, I'm gonna be real quick once they call me. I tell you. Did you get much snow out of this storm?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, that's about what we got in Dover. You know, it's funny, not far south of us, it's 2 feet. Yeah, so I was surprised, actually. I thought we were gonna get much more. It just, more down to southern New England. What's that?
My son in Boston got
Oh,
more than
yeah,
we
they
did.
got a lot. And just south of Boston? Like 3 feet? I was ready for a big storm, I really was, but at least the ground's white again. I think it's in D. Let me take another look. Thank you. Yeah, it's in D. It's D. That's different. And 0285 is different from 0179. We have 2 amendments on this. But the final amendment is, the 285 is the state of the art, and you should have it. If not, we can get you one.
Do I hear a motion?
I'm moving to exec.
Second.
Okay. Did everyone get their copies of the clean energy?
Letter, yes. Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna. Thank you. All right. So, we have a total of 5, not including the ones we have today. So, I think what I'd like to do, I'd like to exec 308. That's, I think, your bill. Sure.
I'll make the motion, ought to pass.
Second,
Okay.
and I'll move amendment 0285.
Okay, and
I don't have a copy of that amendment.
okay. So,
I'll just speak to it. This,
Right.
this made a minor changing in the wording. of the previous amendment. On line 16, it says, "He or she possesses an international driving permit if their license issued from a jurisdiction outside the United States is not written in English." And that was a change that Rob Johnson wanted, in part to address that, we do have licensing that comes in, say, from Jamaica, that's in English. So should they have to also get one international permit when they've got a valid license there? If it's not in English, then get the international so that law enforcement knows what they're looking at. But that's basically it. And otherwise, the clarifications that are in here are ones that were discussed, just changing the word to permit where it should be, that we became aware of in the hearing itself.
Okay. Is everyone okay with the amendment? Oh, sorry.
Here, let me give you a copy. Up there is it by magic. Could it be the one, the only, Cameron Levine?
Denise, do you have one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion right now is ought to pass
On the amendment.
on the amendment. So I move ought to pass on amendment 0285S.
Second.
Okay, so I moved the amendment, Senator Sherman seconded it. All those in favor of 0285S, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move
Okay.
what to pass as amended?
A second. Let Ruth second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Consent?
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor of consent say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Dave, this is yours. You want to take it
Yeah,
out?
sure, thanks.
Okay. Senate Bill 389, that's defining mobile services, garages, and relative to state vehicle.
There's not an amendment on this one?
I'm sorry?
No amendment, right?
Ow, wasn't there an amendment?
Yeah, there is. I will move amendment 0219.
378's in here.
389, Senate Bill 389.
Defining mobile service garages and relative to state vehicle inspection.
David, what did the amendment do?
0219.
No, what did it do?
Here.
I have it.
It clarifies, we had the discussion about in operation as internet connectivity, and then the climate, remember the climate stuff? Making sure that the climate was there so that the equipment would operate as needed. And then clarified just down below the requirements that be staffed and the locations are known for the surprise inspections. And we had assurances that that issue about whether the town, like a regular service garage, would have purview over its location, and the answer is yes. That is covered by the rules, and when they put in the application for the permit, it's just like a regular garage, and that's taken care of there. So I think anyways, that's what it does, Senator.
Great, thanks. There was also a typo on the original bill. Line 31, the word "of."
The what? Line, what page? 2, 1?
Page 1, line 31. I don't know who picked it up, but I have it marked. The word "of," no inspection station shall include.
No inspection station shall include of the cost of.
So, can we have that just as a
Committee
committee
amendment? Yeah.
correction, just to take that of out of there? I'm sorry, we didn't catch that one, Senator. It's line 31.
The very last sentence there, it says, "No inspection station shall include it should say, no inspection station shall include the cost of." There's an extra "of" in there. Just take that out. Yep, great. Okay,
So I'll move ought to pass on the amendment.
okay.
As amended.
Oh, have we already voted on the amendment?
No, no, as amended. So do we have to vote on both now, the committee amendment changing the "of"?
I think we have to do the amendment first, and then the committee amendment is on the OTPA because it's not addressed
Well,
by the
let
amendment.
me say the committee amendment will be 0219 with that typo corrected.
That works.
It's not in 0219 though, is it?
With that, with the addition of that corrected.
He's
I
gonna make
see what
the,
you're doing.
he's gonna,
Okay.
Peter's gonna make the correction on the
0219.
amendment, and that'll be the committee amendment.
Okay?
Perfect.
Okay. I probably have it somewhere. Oh, thank you. Okay. So Senator Sherman moved committee amendment.
The amendment and the committee amendment.
Second that.
Senator Rishardi seconds. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Move on to pass as amended.
Second. Senator Sherman seconds. All those in favor of ought to pass? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Are we doing consent?
Oh, I move consent.
I'll second.
All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's your bill, you want to take it out?
Sure. I will. I'm doing all the work.
Well, that reminds me.
I'm still trying to figure out how I ended up with Denise's bill on the license plate tags. I'm taking your bill out. Did you know that?
No?
It was listed, I got the blurb.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Give you something to do,
It's
Yeah.
done.
your idle time.
Oh, we already did this one. Okay. Does anybody want to do is anybody opposed to doing 406?
Which is that?
That was the one we just heard on the driver's license reciprocity.
Oh, yeah, I'm good to go. I'll move on to pass.
Second.
All right. Senator Waters moves ought to pass on Senate Bill 406. Senator Sherman seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Consent?
Second. All those in favor of consent say aye.
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 Aye. And I'll take it out. See, I'm sharing.
Did you see we got the 417 fiscal note, which is a goose egg? It says the cost to be
Was
covered.
that what that was?
Yeah, it says the cost to be covered by the utility assessment, so that's the key. right
Okay.
there.
All right.
So, but we can wait, there's no hurry.
Yeah, I wanna wait.
There it is.
Well, finished. I'm planning on hopefully finishing up next week.
Okay.
We have how many bills left? No. Well, not counting house bills. Which one are we hearing next week?
Your bill, I think.
Oh,
Oh, was it,
they couldn't be here. DOT couldn't be here for it. Right. Okay, they're not, that's funny. Somebody from hoped he was here.
Bill was here.
All right, so we only have one bill, and let's try and get the rest of them out maybe next week. Sounds good? All right. I move, come out of exec.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, before we go anywhere, I just want to say a big shout out to Senator Waters for taking the helm for the first couple of weeks of the session, because I couldn't be here. He did a dynamite job, managed, as he always does, but he's been a real help, so thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator, thank you. It's all team on Senate Transportation. This is good, we have some interesting bills, there are not too many.
I know, not like judiciary, ED&A.
Well, I'm still not getting called to judiciary.
Are they were started this morning, right?
Yeah, I gotta go introduce a bill, but I just want to ask you a question. So we'll talk, I mean, if you have any more questions about 417, just let me know on the school bus thing.
Oh, the only
Yeah.
thing I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
about, the one we just heard.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, I worked with the department, and they just said, gotta park the money somewhere.
Right, the only thing I wanted to see is, I need to go through this. How would you feel if I said, if we said in here, no general fund money? No general fund money.
Well, forever?
Well,
I mean, you can't bind a future legislature, but, if a Department of Transportation needs an extra appropriation so they can set up for the snowplows something, we might, through the 10-year plan, put something in there. So, I mean, it's boilerplate language. There's nothing in this, I mean, there'd have to be a separate appropriation, but there's no appropriation in here.
I know.
So, I mean, I want you to be comfortable, but I'm not, it seems to me it's hard how to conceptualize how we do it.
Well, then how about construction of electric vehicle charging infrastructure on commercial private property?
Sure. Yeah, I think that really is the intent.
Yeah.
And that, and I think it also partly, like municipalities are just championing the bit to get charging stations downtown for shoppers. And so I think that was, but that your commercial private property would do it for them.
Do you want commercial
I
slash
don't know.
municipal,
What happened?
or is it addressed elsewhere? Construction of
not-
electric vehicle charging infrastructure on commercial private, oh, yeah.
Just leave it. I
Yeah.
think that's a good, when I looked at that, I said, wait a minute, that is probably no way this is going to somebody's house. And I suppose.
But
that-
someone
yeah,
would try.
but what about an apartment building?
Well, that's still
That's commercial
commercial,
private property.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Condo complex would be commercial private property. Thanks.
So was that when Ian came in and he's like, oh, Ian, I heard him say, oh, Ian.
I mean,
That
if,
I brought. Because I'm like, oh, crap, I know she wants to accept that one.
No, I didn't.
Because that one
I
just.
didn't want to exec it without it.
Yeah, because that just came in. And so I hurried up, made copies and ran.
thank you, very much appreciated. So,
Yeah.
Regina, just a thought, I mean, I want to make sure there's no tripwire on that infrastructure, fund bill.
Yep.
If you think it would help to say that any funding from general funds would need to be approved by the legislature,
I like that.
maybe you could have
It
him,
can go through fiscal too.
whatever you want. But I think that, people are, we want your money.
Why don't we discuss it next week? And we can do a committee amendment.
But that, I think,
I'll put it
it's just important. We've got the money, we want to get out the door, and I don't want anybody to be be suspicious.
Well, and the fact
Or
that
worry about it, you know?
it sounds like we're gonna be getting more and more
Oh, yeah.
federal funds for EVs, so,
Well, you know, that EPA administered fund that has been approved is a $2.5 to $5 billion of grants to the states. Now, we might, you know, we might get tens of millions out of that. We've got 17 million, which is, you know, it's not in the hopper yet. It's not, you know, in the state.
Right.
But it's assigned to us. They just gotta
Put it
finish
through the
down,
process.
just get it out the door in
Yeah.
Washington, but it's
good luck
there,
with that
so.
one, right now.
You don't need these? I ran.
I know.
I ran